Joining us now is Dr. Abhishek Manu Singhvi, third term sitting MP, top lawyer, and of course a lifetime congressman. Abhishek Manu Singhvi ji, namaste. You're somebody who's very, very candid. We are connecting and speaking after a while, but I've been following your posts. There is something one of your very close colleagues and good friend has just said. He said that since 2014, 177 MPs, MLAs, and 222 candidates have left the Congress. No party has seen such an exodus. How do you want to respond to this?
Well, I think nobody is disputing figures and facts. All of us say that we have had a secular decline, and in particular after 14. Of course, people who talk of a longer secular decline from 80s and 90s forget 10 years successively being in power. But I am now saying myself, and I'm openly saying it. Equally, when your channels on the platform, just 2 days ago when the polling results were coming on 10th, showed that although much diminished and much in decline, we have the largest number of MLAs in the country after the BJP. So these are facts of life which nobody is running away from. Let me be very blunt, Anand. I mean, you can be, direct, you can be sarcastic, you can be indirect. But we are in deep, concern about these issues. I don't think any well-wisher of the Congress is away from the fact that it has to be reconfigured, rewired, reinvented. You can use, I don't just want to use the word introspection because you'll make a jibe at me, but all those words are relevant and they're not mere adjectives. They are genuine words. But I must add one thing very clearly. And this has been my stand, not with you, but with other channels in the past. Yes, that includes entire rejigging. But to define leadership as in this isolated way that we are only gunning for Mr. A, B, and C, or Miss A, B, and C, is a very warped and a very narrow view of it. Why should you not, and I'm including everyone, I'm including myself apart. I mean, I'm in any case including myself. The district head, the block head, the state head, or indeed the office holder of the block and district and state, or indeed of the central level, they are all part of the what you might call the leadership. I'm not talking of the ordinary worker alone. So all of them have to, some places change, some places reinvent, some places restructure. But just to take this narrow view, we are gunning for A, B, and C, and then A, B, and C remove, press a button, and all this reconfiguration and all the adjectives of Dr. Singhvi will work. That, I think, is a very, very distorted view.
Sir, I'll tell you one more thing. Yesterday, Mr. Ashok Gehlot turns around and says that Priyanka Gandhi was able to put up so many candidates across 399 seats. It's in itself an achievement. My point is, sir, if there are senior minds, very, very erudite minds who understand where the problem is, why is it that it is 8 years down the line and it is still not being fixed?
Well, that's something we have to change. According to me, and this is my personal answer, we have to do Akla Chalo from before an election 2 years and after one election. I'm being very blunt and candid to the extent I can.
Yeah.
You cannot reinvent in some of our, what I may call secular decline structural states, if I may use that phrase, without doing this. Number two, I have in particular followed Priyanka Gandhi and UP more closely than the others. Not even her worst enemies, and there are many, suggest that she did not give it her all, although I myself told her the time was short. Not even her worst enemies suggest that she hesitated to take the bullet from the front and go up. And let me tell you, there was a lot of re-energizing, a lot of momentum and direction. However, the real reason is simple, and we both talked about it also.
Yeah.
Reason is simple. People vote for those who they see as a winner.
Yeah.
I may like you a lot. I want to go and vote for you. But if I know that you are unlikely to be a winner, I'm now giving you a very candid critique, then the vote will go to number one and number two. And that is what happened in UP. Nobody saw us as a winner. But despite that, let me not diminish and let you not assume that the role of Priyanka Gandhi was in any manner perfunctory, casual, or less than effective. Yes, we need to do it right now, starting yesterday, till the next election.
Correct.
That's a different issue.
That's where the issue is, Dr. Saab. The fact is, the issue is ideologically people may have different positions. I'm talking from a pure point of view of how much of the hard yards you need to put. On ground, there are people who still owe their allegiance to the Congress. They are lifetime Congresses. I've seen them and I've met them. But they lament the fact that there is no connect. They lament the fact that this winnability, the fact that the Congress party is a winner, its leadership is a winner at all levels, is gone. How is it that those who have got the control of the party over the last 10, 15, 20 years are not aware of this and nothing is being done?
No,
You will admit the hard yards have to be put and they're not being put.
No, I do not at all agree that they are not aware of it. But your first part of your question is very important. I call it both a tragedy and an opportunity. First part of your question rightly put that with so much of secular decline in some areas, in other areas we've done well, we formed two governments. It's not a small thing to form two central governments. And during the time of those two central governments, we had as many as 7, 8, 10 states at one time. So, but despite the decline post-14, there are what might be called hardcore congressmen willing to give their all, which is what I call it a tragedy and an opportunity. Now, it is our job, and I include each one of us from the top Congress president down to the last worker, but in particular, all office bearers at all points. I mean, we are not talking of so-called leaders and office bearers at each level. Well, their job is to leverage that basic goodwill. Now, according to me, state-wise, it has to be different. There have to be broadly 3 strategies. Some states will have to be ekla chalo. Some states will have to be where you are the leader, where there's a bilateral fight with the BJP. You have to take the lead and get every other person with you to prevent vote division. That's strategy 2. And there is a third strategy. There are states where you think you cannot do between now and 24. I mean, I'm not belittling the elections coming at the end of 22 and 23. But ultimately, today's focus has to be 24.
24.
My strategy for 24 is these threefold. As I said, start the work now. Go along with places where you are the leader in the opposition, get the other people with you to prevent vote division, because BJP at its best never gets more than 40% vote. But the third is equally important in the short time available. You may have to identify state-wise. So I'm now suggesting that you fight the national 24 elections state-wise. I'm not talking of state elections. National elections are fought state-wise.
You identify the states where you have some.
No. You identify the poll in state X. The poll there is Anand Narasimha. You identify the poll in X state Y where it is Abhishek Singhvi. You rally around that, give up your ego, submerge your ego, and that poll becomes the main contender with your support against Modi. That is the game of vote division prevention. So if only every election at Modi's peak has been an election where he gets less than 40% vote. If 80% of the balance 60% are prevented from vote division, well, Mr. Modi is going to find it very difficult.
But to prevent that vote division, you have to stand for something. Do you think that the Congress needs to dissolve itself top down entirely and reformat itself altogether? Because what does the Congress party stand for? What does its leadership stand for? A party which was called a pro-Hindu party before the partition, today is called a pro-Muslim party. It's seen only as a Muslim party. You talk about secular front, it's seen as a purely a Muslim front. No, that's the perception. So is that not important that there is a redefinition that happens?
This is one part of your questioning I must very, very categorically answer and deny. I don't agree with this narrative at all, not even 1%. I don't agree with the narrative, which is certainly projected in the press, that issues like Hindu party or Muslim party are even remotely relevant. I believe that this narrative is deliberately projected by the BJP because it suits them the most. I believe nobody, not the ones who have goodwill despite our secular decline, not the ones who are otherwise thinking of 2 options, none of them treat us as a Muslim party. You do not have the presence all India. You do not have a 125-year history with being treated as a Muslim party or a Hindu party. The strength of the Congress, it's a rainbow coalition, and that phrase might have become outdated. It remains true today, of different groups, colors, images, castes, groups, regions, etc. I totally deny that it is seen as, of course, it suits the BJP narrative. BJP may keep on giving you lectures.
It's not the BJP's narrative, sir. It's not the BJP narrative. No, sir. Muhammad Ali Jinnah used to call the Congress a Hindu party before partition. Now today on ground, and I'm not quoting the BJP or anybody else, it's the perception. Now, why do you think that the Congress is not seen as available? Because the anti-BJP faction and the groups, they believe the Congress is not an option, and the Congress's politics has been veered towards Muslim appeasement. That's the allegation on it. Now, if you want to change that perception, you have a challenge.
Without repeating what I just said, which I strongly reiterate, I don't think we would have won 2 successive national elections in 10 states if we are considered a Muslim party or a Hindu party. We have a large cross-section of people voting for us. Even today, at our worst times, we have 11 to 12 crore people voting for us. And the BJP rules the country with about 23 crores. So it's a complete false narrative. Secondly, I think it is clearly a narrative of this polarization, the word itself, which suits the BJP. Third, we have not now from our origin had this image of carrying all segments together. In fact, we did it to a fault, because then Margaret Thatcher said one in a famous quip. He said, when you stand in the middle of the road, you have a danger of being struck down by traffic from both the right and the left. So, in fact, we have been a centrist party with a left-leaning kind of philosophy for a very long time. But most important, do you think we've been winning elections for 50, 60 odd years in these last 70 years, 50 years, by being a Muslim party or a Hindu party in a country of 80% Hindus? Absolutely not. Yes, there are issues which we may have considered, we may have made a fault. I mean, there was an issue, in a particular issue in a Shahbano context, there might have been a fault. Issues are different. Issues are not the point. I mean, there are people within the Congress, which is a rainbow coalition, who are critical of issue 1 or versus issue 2. But to suggest this is totally, and let me tell you one more thing. Unless you give a sense of reassurance to our minorities, it is not at all appeasement. You have to give, of course, you should not do appeasement. Appeasement means what? It means tushtikaran. Tushtikaran means that I falsely placate you with false things. I agree with you, you should not do it. But the BJP's definition is to scare the minorities, to suppress the minorities, to make them fearful. Today in this country, according to me, secularism, which is a much abused phrase, is a self-preservation exercise. It is not a largesse I'm doing to you. It is for my own preservation. Why? Because a country as diverse, the most diverse spot on planet Earth, cannot live except by pluralism, inclusion, multiculturalism, and secularism. Now, these are words which you can, denigrate, and I know that the winds have changed since 2014. These words have become words of abuse and discrediting, but I still stand by these words. They have meaning and resonance in India, because you cannot govern, and this country will become ungovernable unless you give a sense of reassurance to those, not only the poor and deprived, but those who don't belong to the so-called majority race, caste, or religion.
The issue is, sir, that secularism as a concept itself has been debased to a certain level. That let's not get into that, because that's a discussion and an argument for another time. Let me come to the other aspect. This ecosystem that the Prime Minister talks about, that suppress certain hard truths about our country, and it's all started around the Kashmir files. Your take on this? 32 years, this entire narrative was suppressed. Those who were the victims were villainized.
In 32 years, do you think we were able to suppress the BJP? Was it in opposition or not? Do you think we were able to suppress the Ram Manohar Lohias, the JPs, very tall, not so tall, and medium figures in our political history? Do you think we were able to suppress the left? So first of all, get this out of the mind, that just because the Prime Minister is in power now, he thinks all the narratives are suppressed. That's actually an admission by the Prime Minister that his own party was inactive and never projected these so-called suppressed narratives. Point 1. Point 2. Nobody has answered a simple question. The Prime Minister, according to me, is one of the most remarkably oratorical, powered persons in the world, in the country, and I really admire his oratorical powers. He knows also how to juxtapose a new situation on a past system. But nobody has answered a simple fact that a lot of the narrative going around the Kashmir files happened during VP Singh's government. It's a different matter that some channels are only blaming the Congress because it suits those channels. Now, the point is that you can have a debate, but to suggest that this narrative, which happened in democratic governments, be it a VP Singh government, be it a Congress government, be it a coalition government, we had periods when there were coalition partners which were not at all, not even a Congress majority government. And you have suppressed the narrative. Well, the people took a choice with this narrative known. And there were errors. When Mr. Vajpayee's government sent people to be released with Mr. Jaswant Singh, Do we today kind of sit and lament that after 20 years because we won an electoral victory, or because a film has been made on that? Whatever film was made on that,
Yeah.
on these of those
Yeah.
people who came
No,
and killed us?
there can be different ways of looking at it. And I'll come in that Governor Jagmohan Malhotra's book very clearly says that 88, 89, when Mr. Rajiv Gandhi was there as the Prime Minister, there were warning letters which were sent and they were all ignored. And he's quoted those letters. It's also there in public domain. And the Home Minister at that time was Mufti Mohammed Saeed. And under Mufti Saeed, what was being orchestrated in Kashmir is not something that people don't know. So there is that aspect.
Mufti Saeed, Mr. Modi had a coalition government. With the same Mufti Saeed's daughter, Mr. Modi thought it fit to marry a political coalition. At that time, we forgot.
Correct.
But what was happening?
No, but you also realize the situation where Jammu voted for BJP and Kashmir voted for PDP, and it was a stalemate. Now it was something which was unholy, and it hurt the country. We also know that. I'm candid enough to admit that. But my question is, who controlled the system, Dr. Saab? Who controlled the system is the question that is being asked. Who looked the other way, and who never worked towards whatever happened with the Kashmiri Pandit? Everybody talks about and blows up certain facets, but then suppresses other truths. Emergency suppressed. 14th of August 1947 suppressed. That is, country was partitioned on the grounds of religion, and Hindustan and Pakistan came purely on religious lines. Suppressed. That's what the Prime Minister says. You agree, disagree that these narratives and these stories should come to the fore?
I disagree completely of any suppression. I agree that when you are in power, you can start shouting from the rooftops on something which has never been suppressed. That's all there is to it. I totally disagree that there is any suppression possible of such things in a country like India, and the least of all from a liberal, central, slightly left-leaning party like Congress. If at all suppression is possible of certain issues, it is possible only during this particular form of right-wing BJP Modi government.
Done.
It's as simple as that.
Sir, my final question. I know you have positive time. You've got hearings to get back to. So let me ask you this. 2024, do we see a Congress-yukt opposition or a Congress-mukt opposition mounting the challenge against the
We are going to work all out for a yukt opposition, as you said. But I don't think anybody should applaud even the idea of a mukt opposition. The definition of mukt opposition, whatever Mr. Modi may deny, is a dictatorial regime. And I don't think that Hobson's choice. It should be anybody's choice. It should be who wins, we can't say. I mean, I'll congratulate him if he wins. I'll congratulate others if they win. But certainly, it's going to be a very tough fight. Don't forget the mistake Mr. Vajpayee did when Pramod Mahajan advised him in 2003 to prepone the elections. 3 states. This time there were 5 states, 3 states. Sweeping victories. It's a well-known documented thing that Mr. Vajpayee said. In fact, he protested. Pramod Mahajan said, no, let's have it in May. So I don't think this 2022 model going on to 2024 is a done deal. Nobody takes anybody for granted. And I think least of all, Mr. Modi, he's a very astute politician. But let us wait and see, and let us congratulate each other on the basis of that result. But certainly no yukt and mukt. We should be healthy opposition or healthy person in power.
No, I'm talking purely from the position of the Congress party. You win a lot of arguments. No. Let's hope that you are also working towards the winnability of the Congress party in the minds of the voter.
Absolutely. That's going to be the attempt. Absolutely and totally.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Singhvi. Always a pleasure speaking with you. Namaste.